Hard times. Life in the Houses of Parliament and Buckingham Palace was full of pomp and ceremony, but for ordinary people it was a very different story. Many Victorians faced a daily struggle against poverty and hardship, and felt little chance of making things better. In the late 18th century, most British people lived a rural life, working as farmers or as craftsmen, producing handmade goods. Then, new machines were invented that could do the work in a fraction of the time. This left thousands unemployed, so they flocked to the towns in search of new jobs. This radical change in the way people lived and worked became known as the Industrial Revolution. Daily bread. The Industrial Revolution made a small number of people incredibly wealthy, but for most, the 1830s and 40s were tough. Jobs remained scarce and wages were pitifully low. To make matters worse, bread became so expensive they couldn't afford it. This was because of a new law called the Corn Law, which prevented the importing of cheap grain. It was supposed to protect the incomes of British farmers, but it also pushed up the price of bread, especially in the years where there was a bad harvest. The situation became so dire that people were starving in the streets. A group of politicians and industrialists got together to campaign for an end of the Corn Law and for fairer wages. Other groups, including religious charities such as the Salvation Army and Dr. Baradu's, took more direct action to relieve the distress of the starving. They ran soup kitchens and orphanages and provided clothing and shelters for the needy. Poor relief. For the very poorest people, the last resort was to go to places called workhouses. The government made sure that nobody saw the workhouses as an easy option. Once inside, families were split up as men, women and children, and those who were too old or too sick to work were made to live in separate quarters, which were often crowded and dirty. Inmates had to work very long hours. Women were usually given domestic chores like cooking and cleaning, while men were given heavy work including breaking rocks and chopping wood. All this was done on a diet of potatoes, bread, cheese, and soup, served in small portions that often left people still hungry. If a man left the workhouse, his family had to leave too. But if he didn't find a job, they'd soon end up back inside. But the children, the doctor Barrados took care of the homeless children and gave them shelter and education. Now this is about the author Charles Dickens. He wrote about the suffering of the poor in many of the books, which were often based on his own experiences. His family had been imprisoned for debt when he was 12. And this is probably the, because he wrote the book called Oliver Twist, and while he was in the workhouse, daring to ask for some food. So thank you guys, that was just a little bit about the Victorians. I will do some more videos on the Victorians, so please view it and like and subscribe. Thank you guys.